Hello and welcome to SVTV. We're delighted to be back here at the Secombe Theatre for our latest show, and what a very special show it is. With the clock ticking down on the upcoming Greater London Authority elections, we hear from a few of the candidates who hope to be elected come May. I'll be talking to UKIP's candidate for Sutton and Croydon, Peter Staveley, who's hoping London will be looking very purple in a few weeks' time. I'll also hear from Emily Brothers and Marlene Emerson. They're both London-wide candidates for Labour and the Lib Dems, and they'll hopefully help me to understand the voting system a little bit better, as well as championing their parties. But first, let's hear from the Conservative candidate who's represented Sutton and Croydon for the past 4 years. It is, of course, Steve O'Connell. Steve, it's great to have you on SVTV. Now, what have been your highlights for representing Sutton and Croydon over the past 4 years?
And it's great to be on. Thank you for inviting me. There's been so many highlights. It's been an honour to serve Sutton and Croydon for, it's now 2 terms, and looking forward to a 3rd term after May. I think it's really an important job. The most important job of a GLA member is to get from the Mayor as much resource investment as I can for Sutton and Croydon, and I think I've done a good job there, but more needs to be done.
Turning to May now, and why should the wonderful people of Sutton vote for you?
And they are wonderful, of course. Well, again, I've got a track record of working within City Hall for Sutton and Croydon and getting as much as I can for them. I know the way the system works. I think it's important that I build on that experience. I'm good at lobbying TfL. I'm good at working with the Mayor's Office for Policing for getting results for Sutton, and I intend to continue doing that after May.
Now, Steve, as well as these elections, the EU referendum is going to be high on the political agenda this year. Will we be campaigning to stay in, or will you be campaigning to leave the EU?
Well, my campaign at the moment is to get re-elected as GLA member and to get Zach Goldsmith as our mayor, which I think is important. But for the record, back in '75, when I was a spotty 18-year-old, I voted no to the common market, and I'm going to be pretty consistent on that, I think.
And finally, Steve, you've been representing Sutton and Croydon for 8 years now, looking for another 4 years. How do you think Sutton's going to change over those next 4 years and longer into the future?
I'm excited. Sutton are in danger of being squeezed between the 2 big brothers on Croydon and Kingston. And I think I'm excited. I think we need to offer up Sutton as something different, both as a commercial centre and a retail centre. I want to help with that, and I think that the future is bright for Sutton.
Steve, thank you so much for coming on to SVTV. Now let's hear from UKIP's candidate for Sutton and Croydon, Pete Staveley. Peter, we've been talking about the Beddington incinerator and how controversial it's been in Sutton. From your point of view, do you think this is going to be at the top of the agenda for this election?
I think it's going to be at the top locally, yes, because it's going to affect people in both Sutton and in Croydon. I think as more information comes around into the public domain about the nature of how it was agreed to and how the heat scheme that's associated with it is going to fail and cost lots of money, I think it will become really important, yes.
Another item at the top of your agenda presumably is going to be getting the UK out of the EU. Why do you think we should leave?
We should leave because we want to get our country back. We want to be in control of our own destiny. The EU costs a lot of money, and because we're a member of the EU, we have no control of our borders, which puts pressure on our local services such as schools, housing and the NHS.
Now, Peter, UKIP has finished 4th in the last 3 elections. How confident are you that you're going to overtake the Lib Dems? Or actually, do you think you can win it?
I'm certainly going to overtake the Lib Dems. You have to remember that Croydon and Sutton does include the London Borough of Croydon, which is bigger than Sutton, and in the elections, the general elections there in Croydon, the Lib Dems didn't even return their deposit. So, whereas of course UKIP candidates all return their deposits. So I certainly think we're going to overdo the Lib Dems. I'm confident that I will do very well. Bear in mind the resources that the Conservatives and Labour are able to throw at this election.
And Peter, finally, do you think people living in Sutton should be excited about what the future has in store for them, or do you think they should be worried?
It really depends whether they want to allow the continued failed policies to carry on. If, as I mentioned earlier, there's going to be pressure on local housing and NHS, and these failed politicians will continue to have those policies which will increase the population and make the environment worse.
Peter, thank you very much for coming on to SVTV. Now it's time to meet my next guest, Emily Brothers. Emily, welcome along to SVTV. Now, help me out, please, if you will. You're a London-wide candidate for Labour. What exactly does that mean?
The London Assembly is divided into constituencies such as Croydon and Sutton, and then there are a number of places, 11 in total, which are representatives right across the whole of London. So people have an opportunity to vote for a constituency candidate plus an allocated party for London-wide seats, which are allocated on a proportional basis to the vote right across the capital.
OK, let's help me out. I'm not so confused now, Emily, so thank you a lot for that. Now, what are your hopes for Labour in these elections, and why should people vote for Labour in Sutton?
Labour and Tories are fighting Croydon and Sutton for the first time as a marginal. We have a great opportunity to win at Sutton for Labour, and that is exciting. We have prospects for Sutton and Croydon in terms of housing, economic growth, challenging the environmental pollution that people are experiencing, and also in terms of opportunities for businesses and tackling the austerity that people are experiencing on a day-to-day basis.
You're campaigning in Sutton and Cheam for Labour to stay in the EU. Now, we've just heard from UKIP's candidate for Sutton and Croydon talking about why we should leave the EU, but why do you think we should stay?
Europe provides Sutton and the rest of Britain with a great opportunity in the long term to continue increasing our global influence. We have something like £227 billion in terms of exports, and also in terms of investment inwards from other European countries, £26.5 billion a year. That is a huge opportunity for us to continue and to build on as the gateway to the single market. We are stronger together in Europe than we are acting alone.
And my final question now for Emily. Try and get out your crystal ball, if you will. How will Sutton of 2020 compare to the Sutton of today?
Under Sadiq Khan as Labour Mayor and a London Assembly, then we will see more prosperity in Sutton in terms of attracting new business opportunities. We will also have a more safer and healthier community in terms of reducing crime and tackling public health concerns such as pollution. That's what Labour will offer. But also in the longer term, smarter and more affordable movement around Sutton and the rest of the capital in terms of transport. Freezing fares for the next 4 years is key to what we want to achieve. We want to see a Sutton that is regenerated, which will take us beyond 2020 over the following decade, that will bring the tram a cancer hub and new schools to the borough.
Emily, thank you so much for coming on to SVTV.
Thank you.
Now, from one London-wide candidate to another, let's welcome my next guest. With me now is Merlene Emerson, who, like Emily Brothers, who we spoke to earlier on, is a London-wide candidate. Now, do you understand why people find this election so confusing?
I really do, partly because in this system there are actually 3 ballot papers. Most people know that the mayor elections are all about the mayor, but there are actually 2 other ballot papers electing your constituency London Assembly member and then the London White List. I'm standing on the London White List, so my name won't even be on that ballot paper, but I rely on people to vote for my party, which is the Liberal Democrats, on the orange ballot paper for me to get in.
Now, the Liberal Democrats took quite a battering in last year's general election. Do you think that's going to be replicated in these London elections?
I should hope we have found, the rock bottom, as it were, and that we will be picking ourselves up for what we call the Lib Dem fight back. Because we stand for so many things that Londoners believe in: liberal values, fairer society, a strong economy. We're sort of seeking the middle path, so nothing extreme to the right or left. So a lot of Londoners really appeal to those values, and why don't they vote Liberal Democrats if they do?
And it's interesting, Abigail Locke, the previous candidate for Sutton and Croydon, she came very close to beating Labour into second in 2008, but was 30,000 votes away in 2012. So for the Lib Dems, for this election, is the realistic battle between UKIP, Lib Dems and the Greens?
I really don't see the battle as placing ourselves relative to other parties. I see that the Liberal Democrats are quite strong in Sutton. We have a Lib Dem council, and we also have one of the two MPs who's brilliant, Tom Brake. So if you think that the Lib Dem values and policies are good, for example, we have excellent policies on affordable housing, on childcare, on good transport, then people should just vote for Lib Dems and not say that we are fighting against Labour and Tories or Green and UKIP.
And finally, Merlene, how do you think the EU referendum is going to impact the Lib Dem campaign?
I can say that the Liberal Democrats are the only party really united on this issue, because we have always been on the in and remain campaign. So I think it's really good for us when we do the London campaign that we also weave in the European question, especially if the referendum is going to be as early as June. So we do believe that being in gives us more prosperity, more opportunities for young people, protecting our environment, security, of course, and it's just so important that we remember why EU was started to begin with, uniting the nations in Europe. I'm from the Commonwealth myself, and I have a vote. I feel actually quite aggrieved that a lot of Europeans don't have the vote, and also those people who are living outside of UK who are British for over 14 years. So all those things are what we're fighting for, to give everyone a say, a voice, and hopefully keep Britain within EU.
A huge thank you to everyone I've spoken to. Good luck to you all, and that's the end of our special SVTV show. I hope you enjoyed it. Make sure you keep up to date with all the latest news, opinions and events from around this wonderful borough of Sutton at suttonvoice.co.uk. You can also follow Sutton Voice on Twitter and on Facebook. See you next time.